Okay, guys, here's the Warriors of El Gato series that Bruce Kennedy put together back in 2001. I went over and visited with Bruce. It had to be about 2003 or 4, something like that. I was working in Tucson, I got to visit with him, and I bought all these DVDs. I shared them before, and then W Hunting Supply put them out as a podcast, but I decided I'd upload them and put them on this channel for everybody to watch and enjoy. Let's don't forget my sponsors, Old South Dog Boxes. They're helping me out on a dog box they're building for my Can-Am. Also, Onyx Maps. They're sponsoring me. They're helping out and giving everybody, I think it's 100 years, a 20% discount when you buy the Onyx Maps, the app for your phone or for your computer. And then I get a little kickback from that too. So that helps the channel out. So if you buy Onyx Maps, help the channel out.
Oh, yeah. Don't forget to join our email list. There'll be a graphic right here on the screen, and then also down in the description will be a link. If anything ever happens to these social media platforms or anything, and we still have email, we'll still be able to stay in touch with each other and see what's going on, and if we got anything coming out or if you guys need anything. So yeah, join that email list. I think it's really important.
Anyway, here's that series of videos. I think there's going to be 6 of them. So, and Bruce Kennedy does all the intros for them. So take it away, Bruce.
Darrel Fry of Elko, Nevada, has to be one of the greatest dry ground lion hunters in the modern era. He is very, very good. He's in his 50s. He's been doing it since he was a little shaver, as he put it. He hunts Kimmer curs, and they look like yellow labs. They're the same color. They're all the same color, about the same size, but they're very good lion dogs. And he really likes them, and they work for him, and they're very successful. He talks about treeing lions in caves. A couple of times he mentions that. One case, I recall, he said he could barely hear the dogs in there, and he goes in and gets them and kills the lion. Man, I'm telling you, I don't know if I'd be willing to do that or not, but he doesn't think too much of it. It's a rarity that he gets to push a lion up a tree, because they tree in the bluffs and the cliffs as well. So welcome, Darrel Fry, Elko, Nevada.
Anyway, we're with Darrel Fry of Nevada. Today is July 20th, 2002. Darrel, if you'd tell us a little bit about yourself, where you was born, or how long you've been hunting dogs, that sort of stuff.
Yeah, well, I was born in California in 1950, but I moved to Oregon and was raised pretty much there. My dad had hounds, and so I've been hunting ever since I can remember.
About how many years you been hunting hounds?
40 years, I suppose. Yeah.
And right now you hunt just strictly the Kimmer curs.
Yeah.
What did you start out with any particular breed or just a Duke's mixture?
Well, my dad had some black and tans and red bones, and that he kind of had, and I hunted them, and then I did about in the early 70s, in my early 20s, I got a few dogs from Steve Mathis that were really good lion dogs, and I really hunted them up until I went to the curs, pretty much his breed of dogs, and with another dog or two, mixed in and whatnot. But I pretty much had Mathis dogs from 1970 until 1980.
Now, I understand that your strain of Kimmers are really cold-nosed and very tenacious, no bottom end.
Yeah. Yeah, they're, the strain that I have, Robert Kimmer, he boar and bear hunted in Tennessee, and he had a more of a big game type of dog, and I've just kind of bred him to be maybe a little more so, especially full trailing on bare ground, dry ground.
And they're not very big either, are they?
No, they're in the 40-pound class.
Yeah.
And they are really aggressive, a little too much for lions even. It'd be better if they weren't so aggressive.
You work some of them on your coyotes too, don't you?
Yeah, they decoy coyotes.
On your strike dog, and other strike dogs in the past, would you consider those to be of exceptional intelligence, more intelligent, say, than the rest of your dogs, or just mediocre?
Well, no, that's probably the thing they need the most is brains, and they well, especially working around livestock, they have you have to be able to handle them well. They have to be smart, and to take a track that's where a lot of sometimes livestock will trail back over a track, and they not only have to have a good nose, but they have to be able to figure where the lion went to really move it a lot of times, because sometimes there's just nothing there to trail.
Are those, you find the strike dogs are easier to break off trash?
Well, really not necessarily. In fact, sometimes they're harder, I think. A couple of the better ones I've had. I had one called Striker that really was my early Kimmer dogs, and boy, he was the best dog I've ever had of any breed, and the best strike dog. But he was a little harder once he figured out I didn't want him to run him, but it's kind of the same way. They don't have a lot of quit in them, and no matter what they're chasing. But two things: once they figure out that they can't catch deer and that you don't want them to, then they're really easy to break. At first, they want to chase everything down.
Yeah. Well, that's just instinct too.
Yeah.
Do you use the tracking collars and the shock collar on occasion?
I do. It's just easier, and I think actually, especially these dogs are a little more sensitive that way, and it's no fun to do it, and you don't want to get too rough, especially with these dogs, and that way separates you from the process a little bit, and I think they're a good tool. And tracking collars, I really haven't used them until recently, and I don't really take the tracking unit with me, but I put the collars on them, and it's usually dry trailing lions. You're with them most of the time, and in on the hunt, bear hunting or something where you hear them top this ridge, and you either chase them with the horse and hear them top the next ridge, or chase them in a pickup on logging roads. Either way, you do lose them hunting quite a little bit, but here you don't so much lose them on the lion or when the lion's treed, but you do lose them. They'll get separated and go into another canyon, and so what I use it for is to find them when they're lost, not necessarily to find them treed on lion, because usually when they do that, I'm there. So it's good that way. I know some guys that, especially like in the snow, turn the dog loose with a collar on and wait till it trees and then go to it. But one thing I just think you're really never going to learn how to be a good lion hunter if you do it that way. Plus, your dogs are eventually they're going to get in trouble too if you're not not with them either. But I don't think that. I think that's kind of a little, well, it's unsportsman maybe. Plus it, I don't think it's really a good way to make a lion dog or be a lion hunter. To just use it to find your dog's treat somewhere.
You like to be with your
Yeah.
dogs. Everybody I've interviewed is the same way. They want to be with them
Yeah.
to help them
Yeah.
and along and everything.
Yeah, you can help them, and like I say, and you learn about lions that way. So do your dogs.
uh, do you hunt mostly off a horseback or an ATV or out of the truck or?
Well, I either horseback or afoot. You know, this is rough country, and with these dogs too, more so maybe a little bit, but you know, they go in and kind of comb through these ledges, and so I go afoot a lot, probably more than the average guy in this open country. But I use a horse too.
Don't use any mules?
Well, not too much. You know, I think you have to be a little bit better horseman than to be a mule man. My brother's a mule man in the family. So.
Oh, he is. Yeah. You mentioned that you normally hunt 6 dogs on average.
Yeah.
Do you turn all those dogs loose at the same time and let them hunt?
Yeah, you about have to the way I hunt it. You know, you can't really hold many of them back. So yeah, I free cast them all.
Care of your stock. Would you say that you've got to feed and take good care of your horses, your mules, your dogs?
Yeah, and you do, and especially horses. You know, you have to grain them and give them good feed to hold up, and I don't have a lot of horses anyway, so I can't rest one for very long. And with dogs, good quality dog food, it pays for itself. I mean, you know, I clean my kennels every night, and if the cheap dog food, you know, you pack half of it off or more, and they do good. And I think their life expectancy's longer. Well, I think if their kidneys don't have to filter out a lot of impurities and fillers in dog foods, but I think the best dog food's important.
Do you feed the same food year round, or do you increase it?
You know, I do, because I hunt hard in the summer, and they need a lot of high protein dog food in the winter, and you know, if I wasn't hunting much in the summer, I'd switch to at least a lower protein dog food anyway. But I use the same dog food.
Yeah, check your brain.
Well, you know, I actually have been using Diamond High Pro, and it's a good quality dog food, and got a meat base, and it's good dog food, and I can get it Twin Falls by the ton for a reasonable price.
Would you rather run a lion or a bear? A lion?
Yeah.
Yeah. I think everybody would.
Yeah, like I say, you're in on the hunt, and it takes a real good dog to consistently treat lions.
Without the aid of dogs, do you know approximately how many lions you've seen in the wild?
Well,
just to see them.
Yeah. I saw one in the field one time when I was driving by in the middle of the day down south of Lund, south of Ely. But, you know, a lot of times when there's a kill, I work from kills, and you go to them, and I go to them without dogs, if I can get too close to them and see what went on, and make sure that it was a lion that killed it, and before they track it up, and you know, try and figure out what kind of lion I'm after and that kind of stuff. And I've walked up on them several times that way, and a couple times when dogs have been, you know, trailing off, I've walked up and jumped a lion myself accidentally, and roll under a ledge, cutting underneath and cutting across a couple of times. I mean, but very few of them I could even got a shot at. But you know, I've seen some hunt that my dogs hadn't actually got yet. But the one in the field's the only one I really just ran across.
Yeah. You don't see many lions just out walking around.
No, you don't. Cowboys, it's been all over this country. A lot of them never have.
Yeah. About what age do you think was a good age to start pups?
Well, you know, these dogs kind of want to start early, you know, and they're a little hyper, and they like to do something anyway. And these dogs, 7 months to a year, you can kind of tell when they're ready. But I take them when they're even smaller, teaching them to follow you and get used to the horse and things like that. Like to really start trying to learn 7 months to a year, and the cold trail in the summertime, they really can't do much for the first year even. They have to be two before they'll just stay on the bad track, trying to work.
How cold a track do you think they would start?
Well, 12 hours, if you get there early, if it killed like early in the evening, any time through the night, if you're there, if you don't hit the track till 2 o'clock, probably only a 6-hour track by that time.
I know Cal Allen and I talked about this, it's like the Lee brothers said that they had started in 5 days. And I think Dub Evans had remarked that he had started in 7 days. And I was telling Cal that I got to thinking about that. And that's all they said, is that they started them and run them. But I think to do that, I think the conditions, the weather conditions and everything just had to be absolutely perfect, along with the terrain that they were hunting in, had to hold that scent.
Well, here, there's nothing much but sagebrush, and a lot of it, there's even no cedars, and I ledge a lot of lions, so, there's no shade and very little ground cover in a lot of it. But in a case like that, did they catch any of those 5-day-old tracks?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, they only mentioned it once.
Yeah. Well, one time I did catch a 4-day-old track, but the lion, they didn't trail it wherever he went to 4 days, but he'd been feeding on a kill and making a lot of tracks, and I found these tracks 2 days before, and another guy had seen them, but my intention was just to hunt that country, but they hit the tracks that I knew were 4 days old, and they did catch the lion. One time they were going on it backwards, and I turned them around on this old track, but it was in a rock pile, and it had gone back and forth a lot of times and just laid up and fed, and technically it was 4 days old when I caught him, but a lot of times in snow conditions, if it's warm, when they travel through there and it freezes, a track will actually last for months. That way, if it thaws out 30 days later, dogs will run it, but they'll only run it to wherever the sun hits it, or, wherever it rotted out. But they actually can, a lot of times trail is kind of like a rotten package, a package of fish, when it's frozen, it doesn't smell, and you can keep it in the refrigerator for 6 months, and when it thaws out, it smells just like when you put it in.
Anymore, I'm more and more convinced that somebody could absolutely write a book on nothing but seen it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Who are some of the better known lion hunters around that you know of?
Well, Wiley Carroll.
Anybody else?
Steve Mathis, he's dead now, but he was a good lion. There's, I don't, for quite a few years, I haven't hunted much with guys like I used to. And a lot of those guys like that are dead, but there's still a lot of good lion hunters. Warner Glenn, we talked about him, Larry Hendricks, and Bill Cameron. There's still a lot of good.
Did you ever get to hunt with Lee brothers?
No.
Never did.
Dale was here a couple of years before I came. He used to come up and see Richard Holcomb. And Dale's last dog, they bred the one of Richard's and stuff. But no, I never met him.
Have you ever been seriously hurt out hunting?
No. No, I fell and broke my hand in the ledge one time.
Yeah.
So,
Ever get bucked off out there?
Yeah, yeah, you could get bucked off too, and some guys get hurt bad. Falls and being bucked off are probably the biggest real threats. Here you put a lot of lions in caves, and well, in fact, caves aren't so bad. At least the worst thing bothers me about caves and mines are cave-ins more than the lion itself, and these old mine shafts are really bad. They actually scare me, and caves. I've been in them. And the lions generally, back there, and he might be growling, whipping his tail a little bit, but a lot of times when you shoot, the whole drop might come in. And that's probably what worries me. The only thing that scares me a little bit is mine shafts and caves.
Do you ever use or have used any of the training scents to start pups, rags and stuff?
Yeah, I really haven't. Here we don't have a lot of small game to start dogs on. We just have lions and bobcats. And bobcats are good in the winter when there's snow on. But I just really haven't done that.
You just let the old dogs teach them a little bit.
Yeah, I just take them.
What advice would you give, say, if there's a brand new lion hunter in the making, he wants to be a big lion hunter, something like that? What advice would you give him if he was just starting out? In other words, he had to go out here and get dogs and get horses or mules and trailer and a truck. What advice would you give him?
Don't do it. No, there's still lots of lions here. That to make a living at it anymore is tough. Guiding, it's expensive anymore. It always was, I guess, but it just seems like it is with the price of vehicles and dogs and horses and all the equipment you need. It does seem to be percentage wise even more expensive, and I don't know. It's so competitive anymore. It's really tough. If I was doing it, I might go to Mexico, where there's lots of lions and really no competition. That's the best advice I could probably give a guide. Anymore, there's just so many guides, and in this state, other states are shutting down the hunt, and there's more pressure where you can't hunt lions. And I just don't. It's just tough to get started anywhere, and when you do, the other guides don't welcome you much like they used to. It's awful hard. I don't know what to make a living with dogs anymore.
I would think that if a guy would be to go to a lion hunter and see if he could hunt with him a little bit.
And in a way, that's the best way to learn. And in some ways, that's what I did. I mentioned Ray Rawls. Talking about good lion hunters, I did mention him. He's still a good lion hunter, a good bear hunter, and that was the best circumstance I was ever in. I got paid a salary for being a sub guide, and he had all the business worries, all the vehicles, and everything. He had all the expense, and I got to hunt for the salary and staying at camp. I put all the money in my pocket. Actually, that was the best job I ever had.
You had all the fun.
I had all the fun. And he had all the headaches. And anymore, it takes years to kind of build up a clientele, and you have to have an income to, some kind of ranch. If you have a ranch, that an income coming in while you're doing it. That's the only other thing, to just start in it and start making a living at it. It's really tough. But like I say, the deal I had was the best situation a guy could have.
That's why all of the guiding outfitters, the lion hunters, whoever, they have taken advantage of every hunt that there is, elk, deer, and whatever is available.
They have to go year round to make.
Right. And we didn't used to have to do that. We could do some points. Sometimes bear, but still all dog working.
I still think that the key to success is that you have to take care of that stock and those dogs. If you don't do that, you're lost.
Yeah.
You've got to take care of them.
Yeah.
I know some guys don't take very good care of. I haven't interviewed anybody yet that doesn't take really good care of their stock because they know.
Yeah.
Well, that's why they're successful.
Yeah. It is.
Looking back, would you have changed anything?
I guess I really wouldn't. I've had a pretty good life, I've been able to hunt for a living for most of my life. It's about all I've ever done. First job I had was on a ranch, but and I logged in Oregon. Pretty much been able to hunt my whole life, and I've had a pretty good life. I guess I would. Might have spent a little more time with my family when they were younger, and I was a little, trying to, trying a little too hard or whatever. So,
Yeah. Is there anything you want to talk about, or anything you want to say, or say hello to anybody?
well, I guess not. You know, you were talking. You mentioned earlier when we talked on the phone about lions back trailing and
Yeah.
stuff, and and I think somewhat on sin. I probably should have never even got in this subject because it's kind of like talking politics to talk about sin and dogs' ability to sin and those kinds of things. With lions, I have seen them even like go by. Here we don't have many trees, and like I say, I ledge a lot of lions. And half this country has cedars, and the other half doesn't. But I've seen them go by a tree ahead of the dogs before the dogs actually jumped them, and start and then turn around and come back. And they do backtrack over their track because they always like to go the same way they went. I mean, if you find a track on a trail and you keep watching the trail, pretty quick you'll see it again. And they take the easiest route and they go out and come back. But I'm not so sure, I just don't know whether they're trying to confuse the dogs when they do that, because I think in that case, they changed their mind, decided they better get to that was the best place to go to get to be secure, because they'll even pull some willows in the creek up underneath them, or like the picture, the one on the big sagebrush. They'll get on anything. I've treated them on railroad trestles. They'll get up anything they can to get away, and I think in some cases like that. Anyway, I don't know whether the lion is trying to throw them off. The smart lions that, like, especially in the summer, small females that don't leave a lot of scent anyway, and have been treated by sport hunters and let go and are dog soured. They're really the worst. I've got a few lions that have been on studies that are collared, and some of them are pretty dog soured, but the bigger males still leave enough scent a lot of times. But how they get away here is in the ledges, where they can run for miles, and they're huge, and they can, if nothing else, they can get enough distance on the dog to get away. But anyway, with backtracking, I really don't think that confuses the dog very much or very often. If they do go to the end of the trail, and they'll figure it, I think they'll find it, because a lot of times, like I say, being with dogs, I've seen the lion go up, ahead of the dogs and trailing on a canyon down the other side and go up the tree for the dogs even actually jumping, or get to where he jumped. And this deal where they went by and come back and stuff. They never even made, they stopped right at the tree. I've seen them start treeing, 100 yards away, going to the tree. And so I just don't think many things that they can do as far as confusion in the track really confuses a dog very much. time is one of the worst things in weather conditions. And with snow, if it's melting and you can see the ground kind of steaming in the spring, and that's the very worst conditions, I think, way worse than right now here, dry dirt. Snow is either real good or real bad, but it's not a very dependable scent holder anyway.
What about after a good rain?
Well, it's the same way. If it stays cool and stuff, you're probably all right. But when a thunderstorm comes through this country in the afternoon, it rains hard for 5 minutes, and then you get the same effect of evaporation. It'll wipe the track out. I just think a lot of people, being a hunter and a trapper, a lot of people think your scent goes from here to here by touching it, and that that anyway, that's the way scent gets to here, because what it is, I think molecules of scent float off you more like smoke if you could see it, and you leave a river of scent behind you. And when it's fresh, a dog trailing going like this, I believe they're in that river, and when they zig here and they go out of it, they turn and go back, and they're not really smelling where the lion touched the ground, and a lot of times you'll see them off of the track a ways, but the scent is, like I say, is a trail behind them. In the same way with back trailing or being jumping high up in a tree, they that scent's like gravity. In fact, if there's no wind in your calling, it'll run downhill and pull in the bottom, and a coyote can come up and hit it without even the wind actually carrying it. And anyway, I just think that Montague Stevens, had bloodhounds, and he had a standing bet that nobody could lose one of his dogs in 2 hours, and he never paid, $100, and this was in the late 1800s, and guys tied coral rags on their feet, and one guy carried the other guy piggyback, and he never paid a penny because there's scent's coming off of them, and a dog can trail you down the road in a pickup. And so really, I just don't think there's any tricks that an animal can do, at least things that they try to do to throw a dog off. Like I say, they get away here in the ledges, and they can get away with rapid evaporation of moisture, like say a rain in the summer and spring, springtime and that kind of stuff. And a lot of times the dog can go backwards, and you catch them and they'll lose them that way too. But once they're on a decent track, unless they can get in the ledges and get a big lead on them and stuff, pretty hard to lose the dog.
But Warner, Glenn, Cal Allen, Jim Stahl, all of them say the ledges.
Yeah.
That Warner keeps talking about how he has to help the dogs. He said, you get in those ledges, that lion might jump up on a ledge there, and dogs be back for there. He said, you got to lift them up there and push them on. And Cal Allen says the same thing, that you've got to help them. Yeah. Warner and Cal Allen both agreed with this, that Warner says to be successful, that you have to have dogs in your pack that are, some of them are what he calls a locator dog. Some of them are a tree dog, and some of them are a track dog. He said they kind of all work together as a team. Do you experience that, or?
Well, yeah, and that's one reason for having more dogs. Really, 2 dogs can catch any lion going. But they can hunt together better, and you do have some that are stronger in some places than others. Even in ledges, there's dogs that are really, these dogs actually are pretty catty. I don't have to help them much. But some of these ledges here, run for miles, and it's not so much that the lion's in there, but he can go places they can, and you can't even find them. I just had them in ledges that you can get across the canyon and look over and look from the top down, but they can be just in a crack, and the dogs are even baying, treeing on it, but you just can never find them. That's one way they get away here, all right. It's just a mile-long ledge that's 500 feet high, 1,000 feet high. Well, maybe 1,000, 500.
Did you ever run much bear?
I did one in Oregon. In fact, when I was a kid, I ran probably more bear.
They're pretty nasty, aren't
Yeah, they are.
they? All these lion hunters, they don't want to run bear. All they want to do is run lions.
Well, and a good lion dog, really, I'll have to be ashamed to lose a good lion dog on a bear, because it takes a different kind of dog. It doesn't take the, quite, a good bear ground lion dog, a good strike dog like that, and they're worth their weight in gold. And, they come up along. Some of them, the really great ones, come along about once in a lifetime, but good bear ground lion dogs that you can turn loose and hunt anywhere. They're, too valuable to risk. But in a way, I do like hunting bear, especially horseback, running, jumping logs. It's kind of like an English fox hunt. And they're fun to, and a really good aggressive bear dog's pleasure to own. That'll bite a bear, beam up. And these curs, they like anything that fights. They're really good at that.
Well, a lot of these youngsters just starting out, they think those bears are pretty easy to run. And in reality, a bear can flat run.
You can. You can wear yourself out.
Yeah.
There isn't a lot of that following them on foot on bear hunting. You got to either horseback it or drive and listen. Yeah.
They're mean too.
Yeah. They are.
Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of them, especially depredating. I've worked on bee yards and timber companies, and a lot of them are kind of sour bears too, and you have to shoot a lot of them on the ground.
Anything else?
Really good.
Have you ever been scared while you're at?
Well, actually, like I say, in caves, I spooked a little bit. Yeah, I caught one time, and it'd been in a fight with another lion. It was chewed up all over, but it had a front leg that was just ooze and pus, and it was 3 or 4 days old, and he was on the broad anyway, and this cave went straight down and then turned left and then went into a little mail slot looking thing and then opened up in a big room. And it was highly agitated to begin with. When I first walked up there, it kind of came to that entrance and looked up and growled at me, but before I could shoot it or anything, it changed its mind and went back in there. But there was a Mexican fellow that was tending the stock, and he went with me, and I crawled in that hole, and I had him go down there. I thought maybe he could pull me out or something about bad. Well, anyway, I could hear that lion growling in there, and I had to go get him to get a flashlight. And anyway, when I looked in there, I thought it might be on the side of this hole, because I could see kind of in the room and I couldn't see it. And when I started crawling in, those lights shined in and out, and he could see the lion sitting right over the hole. There was a crack in that rock, and he could see his foot. He told me to come here and look, and it was standing right over the hole. Anyway, there wasn't anything I could do about it, and I crawled in there and shot it. And anyway, that was a little spooky. But most of the time, once you do a lot of this and get close to lions, you're not too afraid of
The lion straight.
them.
Front or hind feet?
Well, when I saw them, and the first one I saw, I've always had the, kind of opinion that they use their front feet, and I still do, but I have seen them where it'd be pretty hard for them to do that. And Steve, Stephen Wiley's asked everybody, and even so, he won't tell you what his own opinion is, but I still have this sense that they do it with their front feet because it just looks to me like they do. But Steve has really studied it a lot, and he's had lions, and so has Wiley. They both had them, but none of them have ever scratched in captivity. Ben Lilly supposedly had one, and he was shoeing the horse. You probably heard that, and he used its 9 feet. And, like I say, it's obvious. But anyway, Steve's, worked on movies and with a lot of other cats and tigers and lions, and been places where they've been together and they start scratching even the pavement with their hind feet, calling to one another. He's convinced, they squat real low. I'm used to a coyote scratch where they kick with their hind feet, they throw dirt out, but he says they squat and push just like this. And I can see it, and I try and tell myself that it's probably the right way, but I still think they do it with their front feet.
I know in Wiley's book, my gosh, he must have 40, 50 responses in his book. And I would say it's 50-50.
Yeah, it is.
About half of them say the front, the other half says the back.
Yeah.
I guess that's going to be, that'll be just like politics. You'll never solve it.
Yeah, and even when people have seen it, they don't know whether it's a fluke. But I don't know. Like I say, my my scientific mind says it probably is the hind feet, but it just looks like something that's done with their front feet.
In calling your dogs to you, do you still use the old time cow horn or something else?
No, I just holler at them.
Just holler and they come back.
I used to use the horn, but no, I just holler at them. Let something less to pack.
Yeah. Well, I guess that's about it. I don't have any other questions unless you got some.
No, I don't. I just, hunting's been a good way of life. And wish everybody could have the opportunity to do that. I met a lot of good people, a lot of fun.
You had a lot of memories.
Yeah.
This is about 25 miles north of Ely, Nevada. And I'm going to take this to show you, especially you people back east, what our BLM land looks like out here. I'm going to do a complete 360. And it'll give you some idea as to how much country we have to hunt in here. It is unbelievable. There's been a forest fire not too far from here, and so things are a little smoky looking. But you can hunt lion in any of these mountains out here, any of them. And there's a 360 for you.